Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Remote Work Movement podcast. I'm your host, Gonçalo Hall, and today our guest is a dear friend of mine, Chase Warrington. He's the head of business development at Doist. That's actually one of my favorite remote companies in the world. This is a very wide range conversation where we touch base in Chase nomadic life, where is he living right now, the work at Doist, and managing remote teams. Doist has a very strong opinion about communication. We definitely touch base on that. And well, he's actually one of the loudest voices in the remote work scene. Someone I look at since I started working remotely, since I started to know more about remote work. I'm a big fan of Chase, so it's amazing that he actually accepted to be in this podcast. So, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Chase Warrington. Chase, welcome to the podcast. Super happy to have you around here.
Thanks, Gonçalo. Very happy to be here. Appreciate it.
So, we have been in the same conferences for a while, doing exactly the same work of promoting remote work and in the same circles. But only really recently, we actually talked with each other at our Berlin Afterworks event organized by two past guests in the podcast, Nacho and Nadine. And finally, after 1 year or so going around the same circles, we finally got in the same call at the same time. We finally got to know a little bit of each other. So that was really, really refreshing. So I got the opportunity just to invite you to the podcast because I really, really want to talk with you. So let's go for the first question because this is really, I have so many questions. You have no idea. But my first question is, are you having fun talking in 10,000 events in the last 3 months that are being organized online? We have running remote, remote afterworks, remote everything. I organize so many events as well. Are you having fun? Do you enjoy this?
Yeah, actually I do. And thanks for the, the quick opportunity to jump on the call with you today. I mean, it is funny. We haven't really had the chance to connect until recently, but I feel like I've been watching your work for a while. So it's really cool for me to be here. And I'm a big fan of what you're doing. So thank you too. I am enjoying it actually. I mean, it's really fun. You know, we're not in the business of remote work necessarily at Doist, but we feel like a part of the movement, and we kind of like to practice what we preach and preach what we practice, I guess too. So talking about remote work and just the way we do things and the trends that we see. It's something fun, you know. It gets you we're in the software world, but it kind of gets us outside of our bubble a little bit and gives us something else to chat about. And it's exciting for unfortunately some of the wrong reasons right now that things are moving along so fastly. But at the same time, there's just so much to discuss and so many questions coming from people who are trying this for the first time, and it's really great to be able to offer some insights and through different mediums.
Nice. And why do you think these conferences are important? Is it okay that there is so many conferences right now? Is it okay because we are reaching different publics, or we are reaching a point that it's just too many? We can't cope with this anymore.
I wondered if you were maybe feeling this too, because I know everybody's hitting you up for so the feedback as well, and like, hey, Gonçalo, can you come speak at this? Or we've got this meeting coming up. We'd love to have a professional, and So there, I did hit a little bit of fatigue with that. I will say, like recently, there's a lot of I guess the conversation around remote work can feel a little bit fragmented sometimes, like it's coming from a lot of different angles, and it would be really, really great to see some concentration of that. But it's a fairly new thing, and people are just coming at it from a lot of different angles. So I would love to see it concentrated a little bit more, I think, and into some conversations that were a little bit more centralized.
I think also should also go to the next level. I think we have been talking the last 3 months how to start. Okay, everybody started. Now what? How can you go distribute it? How can you grow your company with remote work? I think this should be the next conversation. And we should all focus in these kind of events where, okay, this is a tool. Now I know how to use it, more or less. This is going somewhere. I use Twist. I'm happy. Now what?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. Do you think are you seeing a transition to that yet? in the work that you're doing, or do you feel like it's not quite there?
Not there, not there yet. I haven't been talking about the next steps just yet. I'm doing it in Portugal because this is an environment I control in Portugal. So I'm already okay. This is fine. A home office, you are enjoying this, right? Okay, now let's go distribute it. Now let's talk about how can you grow your company 10x with remote work. How can you hire people from all over the world? So I'm trying to push this conversation in Portugal because it's a more controlled environment. But in my conferences, we are speaking also the other side, the B2C side. How can a person actually start to work remotely? Because I also feel that we were missing that. I was in, yeah, a lot of conferences. I really enjoyed all of them, but they were all for companies. We were just talking about how companies, but how can actually people adapt to this new world where remote work is a normal? How can you start working remotely? Do you have to start a drop shipping business? Do you have to work for a company? Can you just do it freelancing? Is freelancing just for some time? So yeah, my goal was also to do the other side a little bit with my conferences, and even if my brand is all B2B, I really wanted to show the movement from both sides. So not there yet, but we are definitely working on that in the future. And now there is more conferences.
Moving in that
Yeah,
direction.
yeah. Even pushing, even running remote, we have to go to the next level. And now let's do this and give more deep information about what is really remote work, not just these emergency states.
Yeah, yeah, that's the big thing. I think so many people are scrambling, and now it's getting to like strategizing. So like it was like, okay, we've got to throw a plan together really quick. Who can help us with this? And now it's more like, I think a lot of teams are seeing the light and they're saying, oh, well, actually, we can make this work over the long term. We can optimize, but now how do we optimize? And I think that's what you're getting at. Like that's the next question is how do we put this in place for the long term and have it actually benefit the company rather than just like, oh, let's put a band-aid on it and figure it out when we get out of quarantine.
Yeah, that's the next step. I think the rest of the year, things will never go back to normal. So we just have to work on that and yeah, keep pushing the good content out there.
Hmm.
But what about yourself? How have you started all this? How have you found about remote work? Was it at Doist when you moved to Doist, or was it something you were looking for before?
Yeah, I always felt like remote work was going to be the only way for me from the very beginning of my career, I guess. So I came out of university in December of 2008 and started working remotely right away, but in more of like a traditional company where I was one of the few that were remote. And so I learned a little bit about the hybrid model, and it became more hybrid over time. And worked there for 6 years, and then I spent a year traveling with my wife, and I took a year off and traveled. And she has an e-commerce business, so we ran an e-commerce business together while we were digital nomading. And then I've been at Doist now for a little over 4 years, and bouncing around, living in different places and such. So I sort of always I've worked in like a couple different types of remote work, I guess, and I've loved every aspect of each of them really, and learning about the different aspects of each of them, the pros and the cons. And but yeah, I always felt like it was just like this is the only way to work, and I maybe like naively or so like sometimes I have trouble seeing like why wouldn't like why how could I go back to a different way, or how could you even entertain working a different way? So I try to like have to like put my blinders off sometimes because that's just so near and dear to me.
I feel it, man. I really feel it. The same here. And you are currently based not so far away from here. You are currently based in Valencia, Spain, right?
Yeah.
How do you choose these places to live? Like Valencia is an amazing place, but it's a little bit off the beaten path of digital nomadism. How do you choose the place where you are going to live next?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the kind of short, like funny story is that so we found a visa. My wife and I wanted to try living in Europe permanently. We had been to visa hopping for a long time, and like, okay, we've only got 30 days left in the Shenzhen. We've got to figure out another country to get to outside so we can get back in, or just doing that for a while, and it got a little bit exhausting. We also travel with a pretty large dog, Siberian Husky, and
Wow.
it's another element to making the trip a little bit challenging. For instance, sometimes like we didn't have the option to fly, so you'd have to drive across borders, and how do you deal with vehicles and that? And we've had some nightmares. So anyway, the what happened was we wanted to come to Europe, and we decided we are going to figure out a way to stay in Europe for at least a year. and just be in one place. We found a visa in Spain that worked for us because we're remote workers, and got that visa. And then the first place we stopped was Valencia, and the plan was to be here for 90 days, and then move on to another place in Spain. But we loved it and just rented an apartment and have been renewing our visas since then. So
Nice.
but we chose Valencia. Actually, the funny thing is like we didn't purposefully choose it. We had to. We were getting our visas in the U.S. and at the consulate in the Spanish consulate in D.C. And they said, "Okay, yeah, you're good to go, but you have to pick your place you're going to live today." And we were like, "Oh, we hadn't made that decision yet." And someone had told us, "Hey, we think you'd like Valencia," so we just put Valencia down and decided, "Okay, that's where we're going."
Wow. Okay, so that's okay. Let's go to Valencia. Why not? But it's an amazing
Yeah,
place. In my opinion, it's one of the next upcoming places for digital nomads. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you were the first one, so people are moving there in the future. But yeah,
yeah, the secret's out a little bit.
yeah, it's a little bit. It's an amazing city. I compare it a lot of times with Lisbon as well, but Lisbon just grew too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. And what's your vision for this location independent people, for digital nomads, for the lifestyle, but more important, for companies hiring them? I know a lot of companies that they don't mind hiring remote workers; they are okay with it. But as soon as they hear digital nomad, there is a fire alarm sounding everywhere, and they decide not to go with them. Why do you think that happens? Or in other words, why do you think they should hire digital nomads instead of just normal people?
Yeah, the normal humans. It's hard for me to say because we don't screen like that for employees at Doist. I mean, we have digital nomads on the team. Surprisingly, I mean, we're a team of over 75 people, and I don't know that we have any permanent digital nomads on the team right now. There's been plenty that have cycled through that for a year or two and returned home or moved or whatever. When I started, I was digital nomading at the time, so we just don't screen for it. And I think there's just a negative connotation that they picture, 22-year-olds sitting on the beach in Bali with a margarita in hand and, laptop in one hand, margarita in the other. And it's just not the case. I mean, there's so many statistics showing the level of productivity that people you can attribute to these people who are just happen to be living a happier, a freer life than what we were maybe brought up believing was the norm for work. And I think it's sort of hanging on to those older thoughts and sort of prejudices about, like, no, people can go off and enjoy life and do different things and not go into an office 9 to 5 and still be productive.
Exactly. What was the biggest challenge that you faced when traveling as a digital nomad? Now you are more stopped at Valencia, but you are still location independent. But when you were traveling from place to place, what was the biggest challenge that you found in terms of delivering your work with quality?
I guess in like the three different sort of like chapters of remote work, working like in a more traditional company, I faced one set of challenges, which was really being like the outsider, like not the one in the office. A lot of people are going to come out of this change to remote work with this idea that this hybrid model is like the way to go. Like the people that want to work remote, and the people who are in the office be in the office. But there's a lot of challenges associated with that, and and I experienced some of those. Just sort of being like an outsider, not being a part of the conversation, even if you're in a leadership position, that can still be challenging. So that was a big challenge. I think digital nomading was tough. It was tough sometimes to stick to a routine. I figured out I am sort of a routine based creature. I like having my workspace. I normally go to a co-working space, for instance. I like having my gym that I can go to, and my meals and cooking stuff in one place, and the routine walk for the dog. So that didn't really jive with the digital nomading for me. It was fun, but I was like, I'm not at my peak productivity. And and now I think I found like a perfect balance with, like, I travel a lot. I still take the laptop with me and hop on a flight and go somewhere and spend a week or two in a certain place. But I have my home base, and that's kind of like the for me the nice balance.
Yeah. What's your favorite co-working space in the world so far? I'm very curious.
I'm going to be honest. I love the one that I found here in in Valencia, and it's a small one called Garage Co-working, and I happy to give the guys a plug for that right now, because if you come through Valencia, it's a great place to work. I figured out what I liked is I really like having like a dedicated space that's mine, not the open desks, and I like a place that has like sort of a smaller, more intimate feel than like the like this one, for instance, is in the top two floors of an old building in downtown Valencia, and it's just like 40 people and old wooden beams across the top and a rooftop terrace to do paella parties and things like that. But it's not like a big like WeWork, kind of setup either. And not knocking that, because that's perfect for some people, but it's a very different feel. It's sort of like the opposite end of the spectrum from a WeWork, and that's what I like.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm feeling that we are seeing more and more like neighborhood co-working spaces,
Yeah.
and I love that. You really have that strong community and nice feeling along that. You talked about two times for now for the about the hybrid setup, and can it actually work for companies? A lot of companies are trying this hybrid setup, and most of my clients are thinking about implementing it. Can it actually work? Can work be done with quality in a hybrid setup?
It can be done for sure. Like, I mean, and there's different levels of like getting things done. It doesn't, probably nothing works to 100%. So there's pros and cons with everything. I think it's just being aware of the cons associated with the hybrid model. And I'm sure, like, I know you've seen it too, like with your clients who are thinking of going this way. When I talk to people who are transitioning to remote work, and that this is where everybody goes, like it's just like the holy grail. Oh, this will be perfect. And there's not really this. I don't think there's a ton of people who have experienced doing the hybrid model in a long term situation and been able to see like the downsides that come out of it. They're not like grave, everything's workaroundable, but it's just being aware of the challenges, I think.
A little bit more difficult than distributed, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you get definitely. It's just a bit.
Do you have any key lessons from your time in the hybrid company? Anything that you learned that you think that if you really need to go hybrid and if that's your decision, please make sure this is fixed before you go. What is it for you?
I think it would be being intentional about the way that your team is going to communicate and make decisions, ensuring that part of that plan involves the remote workers, because inevitably things will sort of be tied back to the office culture, assuming at least 50% of the employees are in one place or in a couple centralized locations. The decisions will tend to get made there. Conversations will take place there that won't take place with the remote workers, and you end up with a very fractured way of making decisions and communicating. Also, it's very likely that the tools that you're using and the way that you expect decisions to be made or conversations to take place. By that I mean generally like pretty like synchronously, pretty in the moment, in real life, face to face. If you remember that there are a whole group of outsiders outside who aren't getting to partake in that and are now completely left in the dark, that then if you take those things into account, then I think you can work around it.
Yeah, I agree. It's very hard, but I think companies like hard because almost all the companies, with the exception of one of my clients, they are all going for the hybrid model with 50% of the people in the office, and they are the 50 somewhere, somewhere in the world. But that's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's challenging. I think for me, the key is to treat the office like if it was a co-working space. Your company is by default, everything has to work as if there is no office, but then you have a cool co-working space where people actually hang out as your office, at least. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
Let's see.
that's great advice. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think also, like, as you're probably seeing too, like it probably is the realistic future, like for at least the next step, so it's kind of cool to like just say, okay, let's just talk about some of the issues as well, so that we know that we're ahead of them.
Yeah, definitely. And again, for me, the key when I speak with someone who, we want to implement half just in the office, I was like, okay, but let's implement this as if you were going fully distributed.
Yeah.
So that's for me the key. I always work the same way. If they want to implement 2 days or go fully distributed, I always implement the exact same things in the same strategy. So yeah, that's my thing.
What's funny is I think a lot of people don't know this about Doist, but like totally inadvertently, like on accident, ended up with a little tiny bit of this situation happening at Doist. Even we're fully distributed, there, you don't have to work anywhere, but there ended up being at one point a little pocket of people, including like the CEO and now CTO, like and the heads of some of the products, like all in one place, working from one location. And we started to see it creeping in, and we got intentional about it and fractured that. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, so you started remote from day one, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and then you had people got together and start to see like office happening out of nowhere, and you saw that. What was the feeling? Was that the communication was not passing along the other people because it was staying in that circle?
Yeah, that was it. And it was like just like oh yeah, like something would come up in conversation asynchronously in Slack at that time. Like oh well we made a decision about this on Tuesday, and everybody else, the other 90% of the company saying, oh I didn't know that, and it's not like it was a. This is the thing is like it's not like it was a very serious issue on the surface. Like the company could keep running, and it wasn't like people were banging on the door saying, "Oh, I wasn't a part of this." But it was just like us. It could you could see how it could subtly creep into the day to day and cause some issues.
Yeah. One thing I totally agree with you, and that's why documentation is really it's key. It's more than ever, and surprisingly, most of the companies don't have any documentation or very light. Sometimes we have something written somewhere in Confluence. This is how most of my companies go. But you at Doist have a really strong belief around asynchronous communication, and I love you for that. To be honest, why is, in your opinion, asynchronous communication better than synchronous communication in distributed teams?
Well, I think when you get people working from all different corners of the world in different time zones, and unless you want them to be working at all hours or be connected to their chat app of choice, and feel a high level of FOMO, like just cannot not be a part of the conversation, then I feel like asynchronous at the core of how you communicate is sort of like the only real option. And it may sound like, oh, well, that sounds very like Doisty or something, but it is just like, I just have trouble seeing how we could do everything we do without being asynchronous, because we'd force people into this mindset where they had to work at all hours and be connected all the time. And it doesn't allow for true disconnection. So the way we work like is basically, we expect we're going to get a response within 24 hours, but sometimes that may not be the case. Oftentimes it's much, much quicker, even close to instant, but the expectation is not there. And that allows us to just all kind of we can keep multiple projects going at once and keep things moving forward. So yeah, I mean, we do feel pretty strongly about it. We write about it a lot. We talk about it a lot, maybe too much, but it is at the core of how we work.
One of the things I always get asked when I speak about asynchronous communication, and I feel very strongly about it, like you are my example always when I say this works. And also GitLab gives a strong example about asynchronous communication, but it's how can we actually connect as humans if the communication is not synchronous? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think like a nice the way we do things at Doist, like for instance, is really sort of a little bit of a hybrid in that we do try to involve some synchronous communication at like to add the personal touch. Like so, we do some synchronous meetings and some what we call casual hangouts and things like this. So we involve this, but we just make sure that synchronous is not like at the core of how we communicate, and the expectation, it's the exception rather than the rule.
Perfect.
There are some ways to do it asynchronously too. Like we do have some kind of fun ways of keeping in touch with people asynchronously. For instance, something that's happening right now is somebody started like a two truths and a lie thing in Twist. So somebody records a video of themselves telling two truths and a lie. They post it. Everybody votes on which one they think is the lie with a reaction, and then nominates the once they tell which one was the lie, then they nominate the next person to do it. And this is going on all the time. And then there's multiple channels where we can discuss things that are important to us outside of work. and kind of keep conversations going in this way that are like allowing us to connect with our coworkers.
So I was just going to ask because this is very interesting. So, what are your synchronous touch points? You mentioned these connection calls where I just speak about stuff. This is super important. Do we have any other synchronous touch points just to make sure people are there engaged? Although it's the not the rule, it's the exception. Do you have any touch points that you have like every week, every month that are synchronous?
Yeah, so typically with every team within Doist is free to kind of manage this how they want. So like my team, we have like a once a month we have a what we call an all hands meeting, and everybody just jumps on for 1 hour. We kind of talk about what we little bit of the bullet points on what we accomplished the month before, a little bit of the things that that will be happening in the month to come, and we always look forward to that. And we spend about 10 minutes at the beginning trying to do something a little fun. You know, we have a group question to ask or something like this. Some teams meet every week. They do a quick like huddle, 20 minutes, 30 minutes Zoom meeting, something like that. And I usually, most of the team leads have like a monthly one-on-one with all direct reports.
Awesome.
So with my meeting schedule is generally like with other coworkers, I generally have like 4 to 5 meetings a month that would involve other Doisters, maybe 3 to 5, something like that.
A month. That's what a lot of people have in one day, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's very minimalized for sure.
Awesome. You manage the business development team, as you mentioned. What's your work day look like?
It's changed a little bit during quarantine, but it's getting back to some form of normal now. But you know, typically, what I try to do, something that I really love about like the true location independence was a lot of focus is put on like where you live, but what I've come to love just as much almost is working when I want to work and not so much where I want to work. Like so for me, something that was always really important was having a huge break in the middle of my day. I always wanted to like divide my day into 2 parts and enjoy the middle of the day, enjoy a lunch, enjoy working out if I want to do that, take my time, and then go back to work. So I've tried to incorporate that, and I work like about 4 hours in the morning from around 7:30 or 8 to around noon, and then take about a 3 hour break, and then come back around 3. And usually in the afternoons is when I open up my calendar for meetings. So I have I handle like a lot of what business development is at Doist is handling our third party relationships. So I have a lot of I do have more meetings than the average Doist employee, but so my calendar's opened up on the afternoons for meetings, and in the mornings I try to tackle my deep work and try to knock out my top 1, 2, and 3 priorities for the day.
Awesome. So you separate deep work and meeting time.
I do, yeah. And having the meeting time in the afternoons is a little bit better for me because it doesn't involve like necessarily a ton of mental strain. Like it's more conversing and talking, and then we come back to the deep stuff the next day. So yeah, I think I'm more productive in the mornings when I go ahead and knock out the big tasks.
Awesome. Is that something about remote work that you changed your opinion about during the last year? Something that you thought it was true, and in the last year you were thinking, actually, it's the opposite. Is there something that rings a bell?
Well, one thing is that I kind of told myself, this has happened because of quarantine and not being able to go back to my co-working, but I had told myself for a while that I hated working from home and that I only wanted to work from my co-working. And oddly enough, like I've kind of come to enjoy it again. And I think what that's connected to is like being more intentional about my work. I kind of like moved my co-working setup back to the house. And now, who would have thought? But now my home working setup is actually is fine, you know? So this has been a bit of a surprise for me.
I'm laughing so much because I was exactly the same. I said I hate to work from home, and I still don't love it. But before I couldn't work from home. When I was in Thailand, in Koh Samui, there was no co-working space, and we were working from home. And my brain just felt empty after 1 week. Like I couldn't think, I couldn't work. But now I made my setup at home. I bought like a big wide screen. I'm super happy. And now I can work from home. And now it's getting hard to go back to a co-working space because I keep moving. And it's like now I have to take my monitor to the co-working space. But then I want to record podcastings. I bought a good camera. What should I do now? And now I don't know. But yeah, same feeling, exactly.
100%. You said exactly the same things that are going through my mind, like carrying all this stuff back and forth, and I'm kind of comfortable now. And I think it all like comes down to a lot of like just really focusing on like, okay, how do I like optimize for how do I make this a really good situation? I'm gonna be stuck in this situation for 2 months. What's the best way to do it? And yeah, I said it earlier, but like just being more intentional about that made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think the key for me to go back to a co-working space is co-working space should get more 20 euros or something like that and get a monitor there for me. I would pay more 20 euros to keep my monitor at home, go to my co-working space and connect to my new monitor easily. So co-working spaces,
yeah.
Nacho, if you are listening to us, I would move there if you do
this. Listen up, co-working spaces. How far is do you have to commute very far to yours, Gonzalo?
I did before. My last co-working space was like walking 20 minutes down, 30 minutes up. But now I still haven't went back to the co-working space. I'm thinking about moving to one next to me. I have one of the best neighborhood co-working spaces in Lisbon. Resves is just like 1 minute from my apartment.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm really, really thinking about moving there at least sometimes. When I go back to Lisbon, I will be back in the end of August to Lisbon. And then I will probably stay in this apartment and in the co-working space next to me. But I would definitely try to convince them to get me a monitor. I pay more 20 euros. This costs 100 euros. So they keep the monitor for 5 years. They make the profit afterwards.
Yeah. So win-win.
Money. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so big advice for co-working spaces. I love co-working spaces, but yeah, I need my big monitor now. I got addicted. This thing is addictive.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same. I can't function without the multiple monitors now and the laptop razor and all my little devices that I ended up collecting over the years.
Yeah, I even got the mouse that Liam Martin told us about in the video from Running Remote. I even got the mouse. It's good. It was right. Liam, you were right.
The endorsement from Liam did it.
Yeah, this guy's Logitech is working. And if you are wondering which mouse is it, it's MX Master 2S. Really good. Surprisingly
now I got the Gonzalo endorsement, so it's like really gonna start going off the shelves.
Exploding, yes. Like it will be like cameras. It will be sell off everywhere. So, Doist. Besides working remotely, as you mentioned, you actually are creating amazing content around remote work, and not just like 5 ways on how to work remotely, 5 tools you should use, but you are really creating deep dive content where you can go and learn everything about something. I'm thinking about, for example, your article about synchronous communication versus asynchronous communication. I was just checking your blog before, and you have a blog that you connect the Enneagram with how you should work and how you should prepare. And I went straight to mine. I'm a 7, so I went straight and it's like, yeah, I'm a procrastinator. This is true. But you are really focused in creating this really good content. You don't create too much content, but you are focusing on creating really long form quality content. Why is that? Why do you feel the need of creating this kind of content? And what is the strategy behind it?
It's a really good question. And also I'm super curious to know how you're a 7 procrastinator and do as much as you do.
Me too.
Yeah, that's
I
amazing.
can tell you the secret.
Yeah, tell me after we're off air. That's amazing. I think everything we do is like really focused on. Maybe it's subconsciously connected to deep work and this mentality of like quality over quantity, and we don't put a lot of like we don't use a lot of like metrics in terms of like how many blog posts do we want to put out, or how many tweets do we want to put out, or how many even like likes or clicks or things like it's more just like, do we have this deep connection with what we're speaking about, and does it resonate with the brand? And I think like over the years we've gotten very, I guess like we feel pretty like strongly that we should protect the brand and speak to the brand and kind of connect everything back like that. So we don't just like quickly have an idea and say, ooh, that could get a lot of clicks, or that could drive a lot of traffic. Like it's pretty well mapped out, and there's a lot of emphasis put on like being very, I guess deep is the right word, like the deep work behind it.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite article we should definitely check after this?
Well, I just wrote one. There's let's see. I mean, I think one of the ones that is very practical is on the remote work communication stack, and we talk about the all the tools that we use, which are quite a few. Like a lot of people will think like, oh, you guys just use Twist or you just use Todoist, but we use a lot of different tools. And we also, in as part of that article, went out and talked to other remote companies about tools that they use. And so it's this whole pyramid of how to make asynchronous or some form of asynchronous communication work with a lot of different tools from a lot of different companies that are doing it. And I think that one's really practical because it's literally like, okay, you can go through this list and figure out which ones would work for your team and which ones wouldn't.
Yeah, like it's amazing. One thing I really enjoy about this whole remote work movement is that companies like Doist, but not only you, like Doist, Zapier, Buffer, GitLab, even Time Doctor, you guys are creating content about not only what you do, like Buffer is a social media platform, but they speak a lot and they write a lot about how to work, how they work remotely and how transparent they are. And all these companies are sharing everything they know about remote work. Usually, when a big company knows something, they keep the secret. They don't share it with everyone. When a big company like GitLab would find, wow, this remote work can give me 10x more revenue, most of the companies will keep that for them. Why do you think these, let's say, big five companies, six companies that are doing this for a while, they are not new, they are not surfing the wave, they started 5, 7, some 10 years ago. Why do you think it's so important for all of them to write and to promote remote work?
Yeah, I've got to say, like, I'm really impressed by the openness of so many companies, and I think we gained a lot of inspiration from some of the companies that you mentioned. Honestly, like we would see we've referenced things like GitLab's handbook, for instance. Like we're documenting a lot of our stuff now, our internal processes and stuff, because we want to make it public and share that with people the same way GitLab has done, for instance. And so I think we gained a lot of inspiration. Like, and there will literally be comments in Twist where we'll say like, "Oh, well, we should do this because a lot of people could learn from it, and it would be good to publish it." And it's not like we should do this because this is really good for our brand. It's going to drive more revenue. Like that conversation just doesn't take place. So there is actually like a just sort of like give and it will come back to you sort of mentality to it. I think also like more maybe on another level, there is something to building your brand. A lot of the companies you just mentioned, there's part of the brand is this remote work nature, and so there is like a that's the selfish side to it. But I would say it's less about that for all those companies you mentioned, and including us, and it's more about like, hey, people, like we're doing this, and we had a lot of speed bumps in the past. We messed a lot of things up, and we've learned from them, and now we can write about them and share them and help. And so it feels good.
Yeah, I think it's more than okay, it helps, but most of you guys have even a person that is like the spokesperson about remote works. You speak in almost all the events we do is we have Darren that speaks in almost all the events from GitLab. And we have these almost spokespersons that represent the company in the public space in conferences. So this is really head of remote position sounds really good.
Yeah, it's a cool title.
Yeah, like head of remote. Damn, I think
Yeah.
there's like two persons in the world with that title. And Darren is one of them.
I know. I'm really intrigued by this because the first time I saw it, I was really intrigued by it. I was like, "That's a cool title, man. I like that."
The same. Like my new dream is to become the head of remote for Facebook, just because.
Yeah, just because.
Just because. What I do, head of
you,
remotes.
you go to Facebook and find the like apply for your position job, and you drop that one in there.
Yeah, I'm really thinking about doing that just for fun, to be honest. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's be head of remote. They need help, definitely. For sure, they will need help.
Apparently, they could use it now, right? As of the news this week. So
I think I'll just poke the box just for fun, to be honest. And say, yeah, what are you doing right now? I'm just applying for being head of remote on Facebook. Well, why not?
you'd be a good candidate.
Such a cool title. Yeah, let's see. Maybe probably not, but yeah, let's see. I just to have fun, so why not? So I think we mentioned always the same companies more or less when we speak about remote work. You guys, Doist, Zapier, Buffer, GitLab, and Doctor. It's more or less the same spectrum. Which company that are now coming to the market or that you are watching making a ruckus in this movement? Do you see anyone actually stepping up and saying, we also want to have a strong voice. We want to help the world implement remote work. Who is making a ruckus right now besides those big five, big six that we know for a long time?
Actually, we did this thing called we opened up our our calendars, like 5 or 6 people from Doist to companies that were going remote and trying new things in the remote world, and just to give them like 15 minutes to chat with somebody at Doist if they wanted to. I don't know if you saw that
No, but sounds
or
good.
not. We called it,
Congratulations.
yeah, we called it Doist office hours or something. It was just to, yeah, just to have those conversations, see if we could answer a question or two for people about taking their teams remote. So over the last month or two, I got to meet a lot of people founding businesses or moving their businesses remote, or saying, hey, this is the route we're going to go. And one that stood out to me, and I'm now drawing a blank on their product, Psych Insights, I believe, is the name of the company. There are a couple.
I spoke with them. They are amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually, I'm inviting them to the podcast. They are amazing.
yeah. I'm really impressed with what they're doing and the manner in which they're going about it as well. Like they're doing very well. They're some young people just out of school and out of university, and are doing really well and trying to really help the remote movement. And with the product they were developing, a bot for Slack. And if yeah, go check it out if you're already aware, Gonzalo, but for anybody listening, go check them out. It's a really cool movement that they're doing.
I will link them to this podcast, and I will interview them, actually, one of the founders, because she's super cool. And what they are building is insanely useful for all remote companies. So as soon as I met her, I was like, we need to speak. We need to come here. You are.
They did some really interesting stuff too. Like they reached out to a lot of remote companies. I met with them, and they just wanted to like genuinely just wanted to learn about like what would this product work for you, and I mean and it's funny because like it's a Slack based product, and Doist doesn't run on Slack, so it wasn't something we can use, but I still found it like really useful and for the whole remote movement sort of thing.
Maybe in the future it will be also on Twist.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I might have poked that bear a little bit.
Yeah, we will push them definitely, and I really want to help them out as well, to push them everywhere as long as I can. So yeah, let's have them over and promote what they're doing, because I spoke with her. She's like 20 years old. It's insane. Yeah. 20 years old. I had no idea what to do with my life when I was 20 years old. I was like lost in my second university or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't building bots and winning awards and talking to other remote companies about like the future of remote work. So it's impressive.
Definitely. I was lost in life. 10 years, 12 years ago, I was totally lost in life. Back to Doist.
Where you are now, right?
Yes. I'm still lost, but different lost right now.
We all are.
You guys built really two amazing tools, and I actually use both of them to different stuff. So Todoist I have too many projects running at the same time, and Todoist is where I centralized my knowledge of what do I have to do in the next days, in the next weeks. And Twist is my favorite communication tool ever. But can you explain why you built these tools and how actually they can help remote companies manage their teams?
Yeah, sure. So for anybody that's listening and isn't familiar with either of them, on a very surface level, Todoist is a task management tool, productivity tool, and Twist is a team communication tool. And the company was founded with Todoist, so that was like our product that we built originally, and it was built as a personal task management system. And then we later expanded it to be a team task management system, like a lightweight project management tool. So as we became more and more remote, we built the concepts around changing the product from a personal tool to one that can be used by teams with remote work in mind. We needed it to work for us. Like we wanted it to be a good team task management tool for remote teams because that's what we needed. And so it just naturally got adopted that way. And the same was true with Twist. I mean, that was like the whole story behind Twist is we were running on Slack and we just weren't really loving the experience, and we couldn't find something that we were trying to do asynchronous communication in Slack, and it just wasn't working. And so we couldn't find a tool that promoted asynchronous communication. So we jumped on this idea of like, hey, we did it with Todoist. Why can't we do it with Twist? And so that's when we decided to build Twist. And so it was built from the beginning with remote work in mind. How every little detail of designing the product was, would this work optimally for us? And a lot of times that came with some hard decisions, like we're not going to include a particular feature that we know a lot of people want and the market is telling us they want, but it wouldn't work well for us, so we're not going to do it. And staying true to that was a little bit challenging. But now we find such a high percentage of our users are remote teams or somewhat distributed teams, and so we've resonated with the core market that we wanted to, even if that's not like the entire world yet.
Perfect. And yeah, it looks like scratching your own pain. That mojo people have about how to start something. That is really working out for you guys. You are just scratching your own pains for your company and you are building products on the way, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like two birds, one stone. Like, okay, we solved our communication problems, and oh, maybe we make some more money. That works well.
Yeah. What are the key factors, in your opinion, that make Twist so different from Slack or from all your other competitors? Is that something special about it?
Yeah, I think like when we talk to our customers and hear what how they would answer that question, the thing that resonates always is that it was built with like the threaded conversation at the core of the product rather than as like an additional add-on. And what that tends to promote is like longer form discussions, less chatty one line at a time discussions, keeping things very topic focused. Like it's not hard to move something to a conversation to a thread and Twist because it's the only option. It is going to be in a thread, and so this just promotes more like more topic focused conversation. I think like keeping things very isolated in one place rather than getting fragmented, and then therefore people feel like they can disconnect from work and they don't have to be working long hours and staying connected all the time because things won't get buried. There's lots of like psychology behind it, and that was what we dug deep into during the design of the product process actually.
Awesome. I actually met Twist when I was working for Remote Hall, which you are also connected with Ifo. And yeah, it just, I understood it. It was so much better to keep, because in the conversation you can only see one thing, and if you wake up late or early, I was in Bali, people were in Europe, we have people in the US, so yeah, you lose track of everything. And with Twist it was super easy to keep track of everything, so well done. And also at Running Remote we also use it, so well done twice. And now I use
Yeah,
it on my own
thank you.
projects, and you can use it for free in the beginning also, so that's quite cool. Like I have a very small team, 3 people, and yeah, we work on Twist and we use it for free for now, and it's like awesome. I love everything about it. So congratulations on scratching my pain as well.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's really good to hear.
What about Todoist? So I haven't used Todoist before. I just installed it 3 months ago when I started to go insane with all the stuff in different places. So I have stuff on Trello and Asana, depending on projects, depending on teams. It's pretty much everywhere. And I was losing my mind, losing track of everything. And I used to do it exactly to keep everything in one place and manage my whole crazy stuff in one place, so I can wake up and see, oh crap, I have all this to do today. What the hell? What I'm going to do with my life? Is there is there some productivity advice? Because I have the opposite advice, and let's make this a private consultation call. So I have too many things to do, and it's hard for me to prioritize. How would you go when you have too many tasks in one day about prioritizing your tasks?
So something I started doing was I started adding all my like almost everything in my life to my Todoist, including like bookending the end of my day. Like no meetings at this time is like a task, and it syncs with my calendar. So if I put something on my calendar, it shows up on my Todoist. But literally dumping everything in there. Like I started to want to like I wanted to help my wife around the house more. So I added a task every day for house tasks, just to do something else around the house, or take the dog out, or read for 30 minutes, or study Spanish for 15 minutes. Anything work related, not work related, goes on there. And then I try to get very intentional about prioritizing. So we have a priorities feature that just lets you put a P1, P2, or P3 color coded on your Todoist. And I got very like aggressive about looking at my today and the days ahead, and making sure that I only had one P1, one P2, one maybe two P3s. And I start my day with those things, and I make sure that I get them done before I move to anything that is less important. And I've deemed what's important and what's not, so it's up to me to do. But I started spending 5-10 minutes a day doing that, and readjusting the days ahead. And sometimes I do have to postpone tasks. Almost every day, actually, I'll postpone something to the next day. But even like things like I added like hit inbox zero and twist, hit inbox zero in email, and these are tasks now. So sometimes I'll get to I look at that as like, okay, that's one task. I've got 30 minutes to knock that out. And if you use like a Pomodoro sort of thing where you have like a timer to keep you on track for, okay, I've got 30 minutes to get to inbox zero. And if you don't get there, then you postpone the task to the next day, but you move on to the next project,
Nice.
or the next task. And this kind of mindset around like kind of being ruthless about like, okay, I have my priorities and I've got to get to them before I can get to the other stuff, and not making responding to email or Slack or whatever that top priority, because that's usually not the case.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a max number of tasks that you try to have in one day? Like I never tackle more than 10 tasks. Is there a number for you?
Because of the way I've started doing it, where I put everything in Todoist, like that number is normally around like 21 to 23, but it involves a lot of little things. And the reason I mentioned that I do that is because it gives me this feeling that like I'm always being productive. Otherwise, I will find myself like I'll go spend 30 minutes doing something that really only takes 10 minutes, and sort of like the procrastinator in us. So if I feel like it's a task and it's kind of built into the day, then that gives me this like I'm kind of like always accomplishing something sort of thing, and it makes me budget all my time throughout the day.
Awesome. I thought I will start doing that actually. I will be scared in the morning when I see all the tasks, but I think I will definitely try to do that way. You have 10 more minutes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect, because I want to be mindful of your time, but I have five more questions. So
No problem.
now we are going to the future of work. And I always like to ask questions to my guests that are in the forefront of this movement. What does the future look like for them? And the first question is regarding this fast change that we faced in the last months. The world really changed deeply and fast, faster than most people can actually understand. How do you see the next 10 years or the next 5 years? Where will we be in 5 years from now in terms of remote work? Will this become the new normal? We will still have resistance? Where do you think we'll be in 5 years from now?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I have wished that there was like we're obviously talking about this as like the fact that we're building Twist, which we see as something for remote teams, and we sort of had like a 10-year plan in place before the COVID crisis. This is going to take years to be mainstream, and that's all being accelerated so fast. And it's
Now it's a 3 months project.
yeah, we're like, oh, maybe we should fix that bug now. No, but yeah. So I think that there. I mean, I don't. I would have trouble believing that there's any doubt that remote is going to become more normal than it was before. To what degree, I think it's going to be pretty sizable. I see most people are gonna probably come around to this concept of being somewhat distributed, probably going to very hybrid models at first, with a percentage of people in a central office, more distributed. And I think in general people will really open up to the idea, and because I think two things. I think one, employees are going to demand it once they've had it, and they're not going to want to go back. There are people, I know plenty of them, that say I can't wait to get back to my office, but there's a whole lot more of them that say, oh, I can never go back. And it's not going to be a perk of a company. I mean, one of the big reasons I was attracted to Doist was, and gladly took more money to come work for them, was because I wanted the location independence, and that was worth way more to me. And it was sort of seen as a perk at the time. But when this becomes like the norm and something you can just like say, well, I expect this, the companies will have to adapt to retain talent. So I think that's one thing. And then I think the companies are also going to see that, wow, people aren't all sitting on beaches in Bali with one hand on the laptop and the other with a margarita. People are actually working, and they're very productive, and they're very happy, and we retain them because of this. So yeah, I think both of those things are going to lead to like a seismic shift over the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I definitely. I also refused three times more money to become location independent. So I had two offers on the table. One of them, I had to move to a country in the north of Europe, and the other one said, "No, you can work from anywhere. This is what we do." And I chose location independent. So with three times more money on the table, that was hard decision for some. But it was hard, but it was not a hard. It was hard because you are refusing a lot of money that can bring a lot of stability, But location independence is really what I feel it was. I felt it was right in the time, and yeah, I don't regret. 1 year and a half or 2 years after, I definitely don't regret. Screw the money. I
Agreed.
love my
Agreed.
freedom. Is there any major challenge that you think we still have to solve to see this utopia of having a more distributed remote workforce in the world? Is there something that we need to fix before going in that way?
Um, I think there's still a lot of improvement to make. Fortunately, mental health is becoming something that's more prevalent topic that people are discussing. But I think it's a real issue associated with not just remote work, but there is a lot of conversation about this amongst the remote work community that the isolation and the inability to disconnect and these things are real. So I think we're going to continue to get, we mentioned the guys over at Psych Insights that are working on building a bot to help with this exact issue. So I think that's one area that there's still a lot of improvement for. I think there's tons of room for improvement in the way that we communicate and the way that we build in things like documentation is an issue that a lot of remote teams still face. We face challenges with this. So yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement. Like we're still far from working perfectly. And as more people do it, and you get more like tech companies and even more mainstream companies coming into this world of remote work, and they start adding their insights, I think it could be like really interesting to see what improvements come out of this.
Yeah, I love the documentation issue because I still haven't found a perfect tool for documentation, something that really makes documentation appealing. I think that's the keyword, the key. People don't like to document, but if there is something that we can do, maybe gamify it. When people, I have a lot of calls with startups that are willing to build something for remote workers, and they're always looking to communication. And when I say, no, we are okay on the communication side, I really, really want something for documentation. It's boring. They don't want to build it. Please, somebody help us.
we're bad about this too at Doist. We've been very bad about it, and we're trying to like having to make an active kind of campaign internally to to do this. So this happens with startups, right? You get like a group of people working on something, and you're just sort of like, oh no, we'll do this today and not tomorrow, and we kind of have a process, but not really. And then throw in the remote aspect where you're not in the same place, and all of a sudden years go by without any documentation.
Yeah, same. I feel this in every single.
But it's
company.
not an exciting topic.
No,
it's not fun for any. Nobody wants to talk about this.
I think the key is to gamify it. We have to find a way to gamify documentation and make it a game.
Very cool.
I think that's the key. So startups, if you want to build this, you have my support. Contact us. We are looking to help you if you offer free products for life.
For sure.
Yeah, it's the problem right now. What about Doist vision? You mentioned you had a vision for 10 years. I guess now it's a vision for 1 year. What are you looking? What are your next steps? If you can share the part that you can share, what are you going to do next? Do you have any keys for that? Any secrets that you can share?
Yeah, we're really. We're very excited about the future for Twist. So I mean, we feel really good about where Todoist is, and we will continue to polish the product and enhance it. We're soon releasing a Kanban view, sort of what we're calling boards of Todoist. So being able to toggle over to something that will look sort of like a Trello board instead of a list view board. So for people that are excited about like having this switch, that will be really exciting. We're also really doubling down on integrations. The integration ecosystem for companies and workflows is just so important these days. And we've done a lot of work in this area, but we feel like we can do so much more. So we've just tripled the size of our integrations team. We're really doubling down on this space, going to add more integrations for Todoist, a lot more for Twist, and continue making Twist hopefully the best communication tool for remote teams. So there's a lot of work to go into that. And when you're up against big names like Slack and Teams and others, I mean, it's a challenge that we're very well aware of.
So let's just have a couple of more questions. What is the single thing that would help companies implement remote work easily right now? If you could choose one thing that they really have to do to make this work, and they are not looking at it.
Ooh, that's a great question, Gonzalo.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I really feel that it's a very broad answer, but I just think that remote work in general has had sort of like a haphazard approach to it. So a lot of teams just sort of doing it by accident or doing it in a way that was, just sort of thought like, well, we just do this the same way we do work in the office, but we'll apply the same strategies to working distributed. And I think the idea should be to really rethink that and to deconstruct all the preconceived norms that you have about how you work and think about how to apply them from a first principles sort of mindset to how you're going to work remotely.
Purpose, yes. So the key question that we need to find right now is, where are you moving after Valencia?
That's a good question. I need to ask my wife. She can tell me that. We keep talking about it. Every year we say like, oh, maybe we should go try another place. We had thought about Barcelona. Our visa is good for Spain, so we'd have to stay.
Oh.
So we originally thought about Barcelona. Thought about we're kind of mountain people, and we're living here on the Mediterranean. So we thought, oh, maybe we'll move up to the Pyrenees for a little while. But right now we've got a couple more years left in Spain, and I think it's probably going to be Valencia for at least a while.
Okay. Spain for a couple of more years. Sounds very good. Yeah. Although I must tell you, the other side of the border, Portugal, is 10 times better.
Between you and I really like Portugal a lot. So
you can visit us.
Them to give us a visa, we might have an argument with our friend Nacho.
I think it's possible. We will fight for you guys.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you and Doist?
You can check out. I would really recommend, especially for people that are listening, strictly from the remote work standpoint. Gonzalo already mentioned it, but Doist.com/blog has a whole section dedicated to remote work and teamwork and building remote teams. So there's a wealth of knowledge there. We also have attached to the Twist URL, Twist/remote work guides, which has a ton of information on really in-depth case studies on other remote teams and Doist also, but some of the leading remote teams and different ways that we make remote work. So a lot of good info there. You can find me on LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me socially. And my email for anybody that wants to talk remote work is chase@doist.com. Always happy to discuss.
Very nice. Do you have any last words, asks, anything you want to share with the audience before you leave?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I thank you, Gonzalo, for pushing the movement forward and helping people get the information they need about this. It's not the business we're in at Doist. We're building software tools. We like being a part of the conversation, but it's great that there's people like you kind of pushing this movement forward and informing people and helping kind of raise some of the concerns and get to the solutions. So yeah, we're thankful for that.
Well, my work is to interview great people like you, so I don't think it's very hard working, to be honest. I just have fun promoting what I love, and I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Chase, thank you very much for your time. This was an amazing time talking with you. Finally, we got to know with each other. I think that's the key. We need to block 1 hour and speak with the people, or else it will never happen.
That's it. Yeah, thank you, man. I really enjoyed it.
To everyone, as always, everything that we mentioned during the podcast will be at the show notes. And as Chase mentioned, keep pushing remote work. If you like this podcast, get this to any other person that you know. It's very important to us to share the words. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye-bye. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation with Chase as much as I did. And if so, go to your favorite social media platform, maybe LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We are pretty much everywhere. And drop us a comment there. Make sure you register to follow the podcast every single week. And if you are a digital nomad or a remote worker, I am building this wonderful digital nomad village in Ponta do Sol, Madeira Island, Portugal. I would love to welcome you in this paradise. Go to digitalnomads.startupmadeira.eu for all the information, or just hit me a message anywhere in this social media world. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next episode.